December 13th, 2003. A man is dragged from a tiny hole in the ground. His name? Saddam Hussein. Picture this. It's 2003 and the world is watching Iraq. The US has just invaded, toppling a brutal dictator named Saddam Hussein. His regime is gone, his palaces are empty, and his statues are torn down. But there's one big problem. Saddam has vanished. The most wanted man on earth, a tyrant who ruled Iraq with an iron fist for over 20 years, is nowhere to be found. The US military, with all its tanks, drones, and satellites, is chasing a ghost. Here's the jaw-dropping truth. They eventually found him hiding in a dirt hole, clutching $750,000 in cash and a pistol he never even used. How did they do it? How do you track down a man who's been dodging capture for 9 months in a country torn apart by war? Today, we're going on a wild ride through the manhunt that brought down Saddam Hussein. This is the story of Operation Red Dawn, and trust me, it's packed with twists, danger, and moments that'll leave you speechless. So, grab a snack, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive in. Before we get to the manhunt, let's talk about the man himself. Saddam Hussein wasn't just any leader. He was a larger-than-life figure who ruled Iraq from 1979 to 2003. To his supporters, he was a strongman who kept Iraq stable, built highways, and stood up to the West. To his enemies, and there were a lot of them, he was a monster. Saddam's regime was responsible for horrific acts, chemical weapons attacks on Kurdish villages, mass executions of political rivals, and wars that killed hundreds of thousands, like the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s. By 2003, the US believed Saddam was a global threat, accusing him of hiding weapons of mass destruction and supporting terrorism. Whether you agree with the invasion or not, one thing's clear. Saddam was a survivor. He dodged assassination attempts, crushed rebellions, and outsmarted his enemies for decades. So when the US invaded Iraq in March 2003, they knew catching him wouldn't be easy. When the invasion began, US forces swept through Iraq like a storm. By April 9th, Baghdad, the capital, was under American control. Saddam's government collapsed, and his loyalists scattered. People thought he'd be caught any day, hiding in one of his fancy palaces with gold-plated toilets. But here's where it gets wild. Saddam was gone, vanished, like a magician pulling off the ultimate trick. The US had taken the country, but the man they came for was nowhere to be seen. So, how do you find one guy in a country the size of California? Iraq in 2003 was chaos bombs going off, insurgents fighting back, and millions of people caught in the crossfire. Saddam could have been anywhere. A city apartment, a mountain cave, or even outside the country. The US military set up a special team called Task Force 121, made up of the best Delta Force commandos, Navy SEALs, CIA spies, you name it. Their mission? Find Saddam, dead or alive. But this wasn't like chasing a regular fugitive. Saddam had a secret weapon, loyalty. He came from a region called Tikrit, about 100 miles north of Baghdad. This was Saddam country, where his family, friends, and Sunni Muslim tribes were fiercely loyal. Think of it like a tight-knit community that'd do anything to protect their own. Saddam also had a network of secret hideouts, bunkers, safe houses, even tunnels built during his rule. Imagine trying to search thousands of places while dodging attacks from his supporters. To turn up the heat, the US put a $25 million bounty on Saddam's head. That's like $40 million today. They printed his face on posters, leaflets, even a deck of playing cards where Saddam was the ace of spades. They dropped these from planes, hoping someone would snitch. But months went by and nothing. Why? Because fear and loyalty kept people quiet. Betraying Saddam could mean death for you and your family. Here's what made it so tough. Saddam was a master of disguise and deception. He didn't trust phones because the US could listen in. Instead, he used couriers' trusted guys who'd carry handwritten notes or verbal messages. He'd move at night, switching hideouts to stay one step ahead. It was like trying to catch smoke. The US needed a break, and they needed it fast. By summer 2003, the US realized brute force wasn't enough. They had to get smart. So they turned to something called intelligence think spies, informants, and detective work. The first step was talking to people who knew Saddam. Task Force 121 started rounding up his inner circle. Bodyguards, cousins, even his personal driver. They'd sit these guys down and ask, "Where's Saddam? Who's helping him?" At first, most stayed silent, but the US kept digging. They'd offer rewards, protection, or sometimes just lean hard in interrogations. Bit by bit, they got clues. One guy mentioned Saddam was likely hiding near Tikrit. Another said he was using old farmhouses, blending in as a nobody. These weren't big leads, but they were pieces of a puzzle. The CIA and military analysts started building a map, not a physical one, but a web of connections. They wrote down every name tied to Saddam, his family, his tribe, his old army buddies. It was like a giant family tree with Saddam at the center. By August 2003, they had hundreds of names and they were tracking them all. If someone visited a weird house or acted shady, the US was watching. They also used high-tech tricks. Satellites scanned Iraq for suspicious activity. Drones flew over villages looking for strange movements. They even listened to phone calls, hoping to catch a hint of Saddam's plans. But Saddam was too clever for that. He stuck to his couriers, keeping his trail cold. Still, every raid, every tip brought the US closer. It was a game of patience and the clock was ticking. Fast forward to December 2003. 9 months into the manhunt, the US was frustrated but determined. Then, they got their golden ticket. In Tikrit, they captured a man close to Saddam, someone who knew his secrets. Under pressure, this guy spilled a name: Muhammad Ibrahim Omar al-Muslit. Who was he? A loyal friend who was hiding Saddam, moving him between safe houses. This was huge. The US zeroed in on Muhammad, tracking his every move. He led them to a tiny village called Ad-Dawar, just 10 miles from Tikrit. They learned Saddam was hiding in one of 2 farmhouses, living like a drifter to avoid suspicion. The US didn't waste time. They planned a massive raid called Operation Red Dawn, named after a 1980s movie about rebels fighting invaders. Cool name, right? On December 13th, 2003, at 8:30 p.m., the trap was set. 600 troops, backed by helicopters, tanks, and night vision gear, surrounded the farmhouses. The air was tense. They stormed in, searching every corner, beds, closets, barns. Nothing. The houses were empty. The soldiers started to think they'd been tricked again. But then, one of them noticed something odd. A rug on the ground, covering a patch of dirt. This is the moment we've been building to. The soldier kicked away the rug and found a hidden trapdoor. Underneath was a spider hole, a narrow 8-foot deep tunnel just big enough for one person. The troops held their breath, weapons ready. They reached in and pulled out a man. He was dirty, bearded, and looked nothing like the proud dictator from TV. But there was no mistaking him. It was Saddam Hussein. He didn't fight. He didn't run. He just said, "I am Saddam Hussein, president of Iraq, and I wish to negotiate." The soldiers weren't having it. One of them reportedly snapped back, "President Bush sends his regards." Inside the hole, they found $750,000 in US cash, a pistol, and some food. That's it. The man who once ruled a country was living like a rat, betrayed by his own circle. The news broke on December 14th, 2003, and the world went wild. In Iraq, some people cheered, firing guns in the air. Others, especially Saddam's loyalists, were furious. The US military released a video of Saddam getting a medical checkup, his beard scruffy, his eyes tired. It was a powerful image, the mighty dictator brought low. Catching Saddam was a huge win for the US, but it wasn't the end of the story. They flew him to a secret prison where he was questioned for months. In 2005, he went on trial in Iraq for crimes against his people, like the massacre of 148 Shiites in the 1980s. The trial was dramatic. Saddam shouted at the judges, calling himself the true president. But the evidence was overwhelming. In 2006, he was found guilty and sentenced to death. On December 30th, 2006, Saddam was executed by hanging. But here's the thing. Capturing Saddam didn't fix Iraq. The war dragged on, with insurgents fighting US troops and each other. By 2004, violence was worse than ever, and thousands of soldiers and civilians died in the years that followed. Some say Saddam's capture gave people hope for a new Iraq. Others say it fueled more chaos as his supporters fought back harder. Looking back, the manhunt for Saddam was an incredible feat. It took brains, guts, and a lot of hard work to find one man in a war zone. But it also showed that winning a war is one thing. Building peace is another. Iraq's still dealing with those challenges today, and the story of Saddam's capture is a reminder of how complicated history can be. And there you have it, the insane, thrilling, and sometimes heartbreaking story of how the US found Saddam Hussein. From a dictator on the run to a man in a hole, it's a tale of determination, betrayal, and a moment that changed history. But it's also a story that asks big questions. Did capturing Saddam make Iraq safer? Was the cost of the manhunt worth it? And what can we learn from it today? I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Do you think Saddam's capture was a turning point or just a small step in a bigger mess? If you love this deep dive, smash that like button, share this video with a friend, and subscribe for more stories that bring history to life. We've got more wild tales coming your way, like the hunt for other infamous figures. Hit that bell so you don't miss them. Oh, and if you're curious about the tech behind the manhunt, like how the US used satellites and spies, check out our bonus video linked in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.